getting hard, if it's getting too hard for you to keep running, maybe take a minute, slow down, you're loving.
लेकिन हाँ, कभी कभी आपकी ज़िंदगी में ऐसा मकाम आता है जब आप अंदर से टूट जाते हो। लेकिन जिन लोगों को ऐसा लगता है कि उन्होंने मुझे ख़त्म कर दिया, मैं हमेशा से फाइटर थी, हूँ और रहूँगी। लेकिन हाँ, कभी कभी आपकी ज़िंदगी में ऐसा मकाम आता है जब आप अंदर से टूट जाते हो। लेकिन जिन लोगों को ऐसा लगता है कि उन्होंने मुझे ख़त्म कर दिया, जिन्हें लगता है कि उन्होंने जिस तरीके से मुझे पीटा और उसके बाद अब मैं कभी कुछ नहीं कर पाऊँगी, तो मैं उनको बता दूँ कि ऐसे मैं ख़त्म होंगी नहीं। मैं लड़ूंगी, अंत तक लड़ूंगी। औरों की भी आवाज़ उठाई है, अब अपनी भी आवाज़ उठाऊंगी। मैं हमेशा से फाइटर थी, हूँ और रहूँगी।
पुढे गाडी आपली गाडी थोडी पुढे घ्या अजून.
This string. That will be the shape of the riff of the shape of you.
Can I get you guys playing along to this? Can I get some percussion? Just to the chorus. 1, 2, 3, and.
this trend.
Okay, guys, stop it. Stop
Oh
it.
my God, Austin!
Stop it.
Austin, are you okay? Holy, sorry about that.
जाते हैं किस तरह से इस सबको देखते हैं।
सबसे पहले तो मैं कालका जी विधानसभा की जनता का धन्यवाद करना चाहती हूँ जो उन्होंने मुझ पर भरोसा दिखाया। मैं अपनी पूरी टीम का धन्यवाद करना चाहती हूँ जिन्होंने बाहु
Keep running. You love it. If it's getting hard, if it's getting too hard for you to keep running, baby, take a minute, slow down, yeah. You love it. Keep running. You love it.
Now if I click on our piece element, should give me this. Now if you remember, we have applied a click listener on the complete players element. So if I go to my elements tab, we have this player pieces. So listener has been attached to this complete element. So if I click anywhere, go back to console, if I click anywhere, this piece click method would be fired. So what I can do is I can see the target. If it is player piece element, then I can proceed. So here we will have access to this event, and let me grab the target. Now if the target doesn't have this class player piece, so I can get the class list, then I can simply return now if I click anywhere else, oops, this is contains. Alright, if I click anywhere else, it would return from here, and if I click on the piece element, it reaches here. So here I can have another method, handle piece click, which will take the player ID and the piece ID, and we can do the operations needed for on piece click. Now we can call this method here. We also need to pass the player ID and piece ID. Now if you remember, we already have mentioned player ID and piece ID here in the attributes, so we can grab those attributes. So our player ID would be player hyphen ID, and similarly our piece ID would be piece hyphen ID. Now I can pass this here. Let's test that as well. Let me console log here. Awesome. All right. Let's create a new method which will set the piece position. Again, this will take the player ID, the piece ID, and the new position. Now we already have this method defined in our UI class, set piece position, where I can pass this same exact thing. Now in our constructor, let us call this method to test it. I've saved the files. Awesome, it's working. Apart from just updating the DOM, we also need to update our property current positions, which we have over here. So let's do that. The files. Awesome, it's working. Apart from just updating the DOM, we also need to update our property current positions, which we have over here. So let's do that. As well, so I can take this current positions and get the player and the piece and add the new position. And now we have this reset game. Now here we can set the current positions to the base positions. So I can just take current positions. I already have have this base positions object which we have defined, and we can simply assign this to our current positions. And then we need to update the DOM as well. So I can loop through all the players and for each player we have 4 pieces which are 0, 1, 2 and 3. I can loop through them as well, and for each piece of given player I can can call this set piece position. I have this player and piece, and now the new position would be this dot current positions of given player and given piece. Let us save this. Let us call this by clicking here. Awesome. On clicking, it is setting it to default. Just reload and try again. Awesome. Now if we directly assign the base positions here to our current positions, it will be copied as reference and given piece. Let us save this. Let us call this by clicking here. Awesome. On clicking, it is setting it to default. Just reload it and try again. Awesome. Now if we directly assign the base positions here to our current positions, it will be copied as reference, and then if we update the current positions, the changes will be reflected in our base positions constant as well, which we don't want. So what we can do is we can create a clone of this or copy of this base positions and assign that. So for that we have this structured clone method available in JavaScript. I can use that. Now let us define a method which will move the piece by given number of steps, which can be used when I click on a player piece to move by the given dice value. It will take the player, the piece, and number of steps to be moved by. Now here I could simply call the set piece position and then then pass the player in piece. I can grab the current position of the player and the piece, and I can add this move by to it. So let's call this move. I can grab the current position of the player and the piece, and I can add this move by to it. So let's call this move piece method here. We'll pass the player and piece, and let's say we want to move it by 5 steps whenever I click on it. If I click on this, it has moved by 5 steps. If I click on it again, it's moving again. But it is going very abruptly. It should actually go via each and every steps in between. So we need to add a few more things. Let's comment this. Let me create an interval. Which will run every 200 milliseconds. And here we can increment the piece position one step at a time. So I'll create this method in a second. Now this method should move the given piece one step at a time. So let us define that. Here I can use the set piece position. and I need to pass the new position or the new incremented position. Now I could simply take this current position and add +1 to it, but there are few edge cases, like for player 1, when the piece is at position 50 or the turning point which we have already defined, it should go inside the home entrance and not on 51. So we need to calculate that new incremented position. First we need to grab the current position of given piece, and then we can check if it's at the turning point. So I'll create a new variable new position to store the new position or the incremented position. And I can check if current position is equals to the turning point. We have already defined this in the beginning, which will give us the turning point of that player. And if that matches our current position, then we should return the first point of our home entrance of given player. So we already have this home entrance as well. We need to assign this to incremented position. There is one more case. If the piece is at point number 51, and after 51 it should go to point number 0, so we can check that as well. So if current position equals 51, incremented position would be 0. And finally, if both of the cases doesn't match, then we can just simply set the incremented position to be current position plus 1. Let's actually move all of this in a different method. I'll create a method called get increment. Position, and instead of maintaining this, I could simply return the value. And I don't need this else as well. So now I can use this method here, get incremented position of given player, and the piece. And now when I I click on this piece, this move piece method will be fired, and which creates an interval in which will call this increment piece position every 200 milliseconds, which should move our piece. So let's click on this. Awesome, it is moving. We can add some transition so that it moves smoothly. So let's go back to our style CSS here, and I can add some transition. Awesome, let us reload this. Now if I click on it, it moves smoothly. Let us test our edge cases as well. So I will go back to my ludo.js file, and here I will set the position to, let's say, 50. If I click on on save. Now if I click on this player piece, it should go in the home entrance and not here. Awesome. Let's test the other case as well, which is for player 2. If it is at 51, it should go to 0. Awesome. And now let us write the stop condition because it is not stopping. So I'll go back to my move piece method, and here we can decrement this move by after each step, and then we can check if move by is equals to 0. In that case, we can clear this interval. Now first we need to store the interval ID, and then I can use this clear interval and pass the interval ID. So here on piece click, I am calling this method and I'm passing 5. So it should move by 5 steps and stop. Let us try that. Awesome. Now that we have almost all the building blocks ready, let us complete the game by executing the flow. Alright, so let's go to our dice click method. First thing is we need to generate a new dice value by executing the flow. Alright, so let's go to our dice click method. First thing is we need to generate a new dice value. I will use this snippet, which will give me a random number between 1 and 6. and then we need to update the state as well, which will be now dice rolled, which will also disable our dice button. And then we need to update the state as well, which will be now dice rolled, which will also disable our dice button. Now we need to check for the pieces which are eligible. I will create another method for this. Let us define this method. First we grab the player ID which is active now. We can do that using our players constant, and then I'll pass this turn, which is the index of our active. Player, and here we need to grab the eligible pieces of that player, and then if we have at least one piece which is eligible, we move forward, or else we increment the turn. So let's say I store this in this variable, and I will create this method in a second. Get eligible pieces, which should return us all the pieces which are eligible, and then I check if eligible pieces dot length is greater than than 0, then I proceed. Or else I can increment the turn. Or pass to another player. So I can do that by updating my turn property. If turn is 0, I will change it to 1 or else 0. We also need to set the state to dice not rolled again, so that we can enable the dice button. Let's actually move this in a new method. I'll copy this and create a new method, increment turn. I'll paste this here and I can remove this and call my increment turn. Let us define this method as well. Get eligible pieces. Now here we will take all the pieces first and then we need to filter out the pieces which are not eligible. So I will apply a filter here. Now I can grab the current position first of the given piece. We can actually expect player ID as well. We already have it here. We will pass it. Now I need to grab the current position of given player and piece. Now there are three cases where a piece is not eligible, otherwise it is eligible. So I can first return the default case. And then we can define the cases where it is not eligible. The first case is if the current position of that piece is already at home. So we check that by comparing it with our home position. Now again we already have this defined. We need player ID here, and then if it is true we will return false, which will filter out the piece which is at home. And then other case is if the piece is at base position and the dice value is not 6. So we can see if base positions of given player includes the current position and the dice value is not 6. In this case as well, we will return false. And then there is one last case, which is when the piece is in the home entrance and the dice value is greater than required. So we can check that using this home entrance variable, and then you need to check if this includes the current position. If yes, there is one more condition, which is the dice value is greater than what is required. Now the required value we can get by subtracting the current position with the home position. So we can grab the home position first. Of given player ID, and then we can subtract current position from it. Again, in this case as well, we will return false. Awesome. Let's test this function real quick. Let us check the first case when the player is already at home. Home position.p1. We save. This is already at home. We can actually reset the game before this so that we position. Position all the pieces at their base. And then we are setting this position at home. And then let's say if I'm setting dice value to v6, and I will call this get eligible pieces of p1. I can log this message. Now it should give me these three pieces which should be eligible and not this piece. Yeah, we have 1 2 3 and not 0. Okay, now if I change this dice value to, let's say, any number other than 6, I should get an empty array. Yes. And the third case is if this is in the home entrance. So let me change this to home entrance of p1 of, let's say, 0. If I save it, now it should get any value less than or equal to 5. Now if the dice value is, let's say, greater than 5, which is 6, again it should give me these three elements and not this 0. And I will call this get eligible pieces of p1. I can log this message. Now it should give me these three pieces which should be eligible and not this piece. Yeah, we have 1 2 3 and not 0. Okay, now if I change this dice value to, let's say, any number other than 6, I should get an empty array. Yes. And the third case is if this is in the home entrance. So let me change this to home entrance of p1 of, let's say, 0. If I save it, now it should get any value less than or equal to 5. Now if the dice value is, let's say, greater than 5, which is 6, again it should give me these three elements and not this. Perfect. Let us comment this code back again and let's come back here. Now we'll have this eligible pieces. I can perfect. Let us comment this code back again and let's come back here. Now we'll have this eligible pieces. I can just highlight the pieces. Just comment this code back again, and let's come back here. Now we'll have this eligible pieces. I can just highlight the pieces. For that, I already have this method defined in our UI class, which is highlight pieces. Here we can pass the player ID and the pieces which needs to be highlighted. And I will go to my dice click method. Here we can pass the player ID and the pieces which needs to be highlighted. And I will go to my dice click method. And then let's say I will hard code this to 6 for a second. Now if I save and click on roll button, oops, there is some issue. Oh, we have this turn as undefined. So in the reset game, actually let's set the turn to default. Turn to player 1 and then the state as well to dice not rolled. Yeah, now it is highlighting the player 1 because we have set turn to 0. And if I click on roll, it should give me 6 as the dice value and it should highlight all the pieces. Awesome. And if I click on any piece, it should move this piece. Oh, looks like there's some problem with the Z index. Let me increase the Z index for our players. And yeah, this can be clicked now. If I click any piece, Z index. Let me increase the Z index for our players. And yeah, this can be clicked now. If I click any piece, oops, we have not defined this case when the pieces are at base position. So I'll go back to my handle piece click method. And here I can check if the pieces are at base position. So in that case I can set them to position 0. Otherwise I will move the pieces. So I can check base positions of given player includes the current position. You can grab the current position first. So I can check base positions of given player includes the current position. You can grab the current position first. And then I can pass it here. If this is the case, I can set the piece position. Of given player and piece to the starting point. We already have the starting positions constant again. You can pass the player, and we also need to set the state back to dice not rolled, because whenever we move a piece out of the base, we give it one more chance. So I can turn from here. If I click on roll and click on any piece, we'll go at base, and it's still player one's chance. Also, one turn from, we already have the starting positions constant again. You can pass the player, and we also need to set the state back to dice not rolled, because whenever we move a piece out of the base, we give it one more chance. So I can turn from here. It's me move. So what we can do is, I will go back to my setter method of state. And here, whenever the state is changed to dice not rolled, I will also unhighlight the pieces. So I can do unhighlight pieces. I will save this, test again. Awesome. Again, it's player one's turn. If I click on it again, I'll get 6. I can move anything. Oh, we need to unhighlight this before calling the move piece as well, which is here. So let me do that. Let's test again. If I click on roll again, it will highlight. If I move, awesome. Now because we have hard-coded this 6, it will always be player one's turn. So let's remove that. Let's save our files. So if I click on roll, I got dice value as 2 and no pieces of player 1 are eligible. So the turn has moved to player 2, and then if I click on the roll again, oh, we need to enable the roll. We already did that in increment turn. Oops, there is some issue here. It should be this. I'll just save again. If I click on roll, I got 1. Now the turn is of player 2, and again the dice button is enabled. When I click on it, again we got 2 and not 6, so it keeps on moving unless we get 6. We got 6 for player 2. And not 6, so it keeps on moving unless we get 6. We got 6 for player 2. Oops, we have forgot to increment the turn in move piece as well. So once the player is moved, we will increment the turn. Alright, coming back to our flow. After moving the piece, we need to check for win. So we can do that here. We will define a new method here. I will call it as player 1. Which will take the player ID, and it should return true if all the pieces are at home position. So I can take all the pieces and I can use every method, which will return true if the callback function of this every method returns true for all the pieces. So we can return this. Now here we need to check if the current position of given player matches the home position. So we can grab the current position, of the given player and the piece, and we need to compare it with the home position of given player. If this is true, then player has won. Player and the piece, and we need to compare it with the home position of given player. If this is true, then player has won. Let us use this method here. I will check if has player 1 of the active player ID. If this is the case, we can simply alert player, and then I can give player ID, and I could reset the game after this. Let us test this real quick. I will again go back to my constructor and I will set the piece position of all the pieces except one at home. I will again go back to my constructor and I will set the piece position of all the pieces except one at home. If I save my file, all the pieces are here except one, which is here. Now again I can change the dice value to 1, and we also need to change this hard-coded value. Instead of this, we will pass dice value. Also, when this check passes, we are resetting the game and we should return now because it will increment the turn. To 1, and we also need to change this hard-coded value. Instead of this, we will pass dice value. Also, when this check passes, we are resetting the game and we should return now because it will increment the turn. So let's save the file. If I click on roll, click on this piece, awesome, it says player 1 has won. If I click on OK, it should reset the game. Awesome. Now finally, let's add kill functionality. Here we can check for kill. I will call this method, which we will define in a second, and we can pass the player ID and the piece which was moved, and Yeah, let's define this method. So here first we need to get the current position of the player and piece. And then we will iterate through all the pieces of the opponent player, and here we can get the position of the opponent. Just grab the opponent player ID. and we have peace. So here we can simply check if current position matches the opponent position. When this is true, we have one more condition. That the current position should not be at the safe position. So we can grab the safe positions variable, and then this should not include the current position. At the safe position. So we can grab the safe positions variable, and then this should not include the current position. If this is the case, then we can kill the player, or basically set the player piece position to base. So I'll call set piece position. Then I will pass my opponent player ID, and then the piece which has been killed, and the new position would be the base position. So I'll grab base position of the opponent of given piece. You can also maintain a flag. And whenever a player is killed, I will set this to true so that we can return it. Then if we go back, we can store the return value, and then we can check, set this to true so that we can return it. A flag, and whenever a player is killed, I will set this to true so that we can return it. Then if we go back, we can store the and whenever a player is killed, I will set this to true so that we can return it. And if we go back, we can store the return value. And then we can check if is kill. Or dice value is 6. We'll set the state to dice not rolled. And we will not increment the turn, so we will return here, so that once a player kills the other player or the dice value is 6, we give the current player +1 chance. Now let's test this functionality. Again, I will go back to my constructor. I can get rid of this. For